leading the charge to make the 2024 Broker Carrier Summit possible, and we are so excited to have their support. In case you haven't heard, TAFS offers much more than freight factoring. It provides a comprehensive support system for trucking companies of all sizes, specializing in fast and efficient invoice factoring with the ability to pay carriers in as little as 1 hour. And TAFS services go well beyond factoring, offering a fuel card that unlocks major fuel discounts, flexible business loans that are designed to cater to the distinct needs of a carrier's operations, a dedicated, responsive client experience team, and much more. Black Box Logistics is a 3PL freight brokerage based out of Birmingham, Alabama. Black Box Logistics was formed in 2020 by 3 friends, Logan Dyer, William Graves, and Will Hopkins, in a basement office with the goal of bringing transparency around the clock communication and hassle-free customer experience to the table. LoadBase is a logistics software solution that simplifies the process of tracking carriers. Multi-service fuel card, the industry's first fuel card, was created by an over-the-road truck driver in 1978 to offer a safe, simple, and cost-effective way to handle fuel and trucking expenses. Initially, it addressed safety concerns of carrying cash on the road. Today, it combats advanced fraud with best-in-class technical and personal support. Sales-CRM is built for freight broker and agent sales teams. Manage your shipper prospecting and follow-ups. Organize your carriers in the lanes they run. HD Ships is a leading logistics provider specializing in sustainable and tech-driven freight solutions. With hubs in Reno, Phoenix, and London, we deliver comprehensive services, including full truckload, expedited cross-border, and intermodal freight. Leveraging proprietary technology, we offer 24/7 tracking, real-time visibility, and advanced automation to ensure safe, compliant, and efficient transportation. Our commitment to sustainability enables clients to offset emissions through carbon credits, aligning logistics with environmental goals. At HD Ships, we prioritize transparency, reliability, and exceptional customer service, empowering clients to achieve seamless, sustainable logistics solutions worldwide.
What's happening? Happy Thursday.
Yeah, happy Thursday. Good to see you back in the States. I was worried we were going to lose you to Columbia for a bit.
Yeah, it's fun, man. Our first show together in since the episode with Nate back in early December. So it's been a minute since we've done a show together. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
It'll be a good one too.
The dogs are back. Well, before we get into it, let's give a shout out to our sponsors. As of today, TAFS renewed. Great news. Factoring company out of Missouri. Any owner operators, trucking companies, even brokerages, if you're interested in factoring, great group to partner with. Additionally, their website contains lots of educational information if you're just looking to learn more Rob and Ryan, great guys over there.
Yeah, 100%. Multi-service fuel card, been around since 1978. I think they're the longest fuel card in the industry. Hit up Jessica, Patricia. Got to meet them at Broker Carrier Summit. Great people. We've had some of their customers on the show too, including Jamie Anderson, very popular guest. Is a very proud user of them. Black Box Logistics and HD, that goes without saying, the company, the agency that Will owns, HD Ships, where I recruit freight agents. Shout out to Stan, Load Base, great guys there. Used to be a dispatcher, created this, the tracking software, loadbase.com. Check them out. Great product, great people over there. And last but not least, Sales Dash. Josh co-hosted with me for the last month. Great freight specific CRM. They're a customer of Will's. We have some agents that use their product. Great CRM.
Yeah, special shout out to Josh for filling in for me last month as I was out. He was the co-host for the month of December. So can't say enough good things about our group of sponsors. So we've got an exciting one today. I'm not sure you know what episode we're on?
I'm not sure. It's
up there.
I feel like we're in the 40s or 50s now.
Yeah, got to be. But yeah, we're exciting episode today. We've got Dylan Admire and his attorney. If you've been keeping up, I'm sure that you've seen the news. They're involved in a RICO lawsuit against GlobalTranz. So we'll bring them on stage, let them introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about them, then we'll get into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Guys, thanks for joining us. How are you?
Thanks for coming, guys.
Excellent.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, for sure. Well, before we get into it, if you guys would just give us a little bit of background on yourselves, Rogge, Dylan, and then we can get into inception of Freight Essentials to now that we can dive into the lawsuit.
Yeah, I'll go first. Like I said, I appreciate having you guys on. I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation today. But a little bit about myself. I'm originally from Kansas City. Grew up there, played football at the University of Kansas. And after that, did some athletic training for a while. First got into freight, working for Freight Quote, which was part of C.H. Robinson by the time I joined. Had a great time there, worked there for 3 years as an account executive, really learning the business. And then after that, went to GlobalTranz at the beginning of 2020. As I said on the FreightWaves podcast, with very little money to my name, so I was very driven to build a great business. Never would have imagined what it had grown into. And then we grew what would have been a $40 million business on a yearly basis by 2023. Prior to us getting terminated, built a great reputation in the business, really served a niche market, kind of as many freight brokers or logistics providers do. If you can kind of find your niche, what works for you, how you relate to customers, that's a great way to grow any business. So we have built a great business that we both liked and that they also liked, and we'll kind of get into that moving forward. But that's kind of how I got into freight and a little bit about myself.
Awesome. Hey, what position did you play football?
I played offensive line, so I was the center.
Okay, nice.
You see a lot of athletes do well in logistics, so I mean that's a common trait. So
yeah, I mean I think having an athletics background, obviously there's a lot of perseverance. You have to be persistent, consistent, and disciplined as an athlete. And I think that's why you see so many athletes. I think it's Chad Ochocinco actually owns a freight logistics company now, and there's several other NFL players who've gotten into freight or invested in freight, because if you can take that mentality and then take it into business, I think you can be very successful, whatever business that is that you get into. So
definitely, yeah, a lot of that stuff is transferable and very applicable. Well, Raj, will you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got doing?
It's Rogge Dunn, pronounced like Froggy without the F. I'm a sixth-generation Texan. My mom grew up on a farm and was the first one in her family to go to college. I worked my way through school and started out with a big mega law firm. And after about 15 years, decided I wanted to go out on my own. There were too many conflicts, and it's so rewarding as an attorney to be able to help people that are deserving, like Dylan and Natasha. And I've kind of got a David Goliath syndrome that I like to take on the big boys. It's a challenge. Generally, you peel behind their facade and find out that they're abusing their power and taking advantage of consumers, agents, BDCs, whoever it might be. So I've been blessed to handle cases, I think, in 26 states, and I've obtained more than $2 billion net for my clients in settlements and judgments and multi-million-dollar awards in 4 different states. So I love what I do. this is an exciting case for me, and one that I think is important, not just for people in the logistics industry that are agents or shippers, but consumers and regulators as well.
Yeah.
We were talking pre-stage. I mean, you've worked with some pretty large companies. We were talking about Whataburger. I mean, you definitely have a lot of experience kind of, working either for on the, or, against some of these larger companies, throughout your experience.
Yeah, Matt, that's a great point. Most lawyers are either all plaintiff or all defendant, and I'm kind of an odd duck. If you look at me, you can see I'm an odd duck. But I've done both sides, and I continue to do both sides, and I think that makes you better as a lawyer because you can see both sides of the story. And I also tend to know what a large corporate defendant's going to do because I represent large corporate defendants. And again, I'm able at my stage of career to pick and choose the clients that I want. And if I don't like the client, if I don't believe in the client, they're not going to be a client.
So how did this kind of, maybe Dylan, you want to touch on this? How did this all get started? Maybe walk us through kind of your last couple months at, GlobalTranz and kind of what led to, the departure, and then kind of what led to the lawsuit. Maybe just kind of set the stage to how this whole thing kind of started.
Yeah, 100%. I appreciate it. So in 2022, 2020, we had started there. 2021, we did very well. 2022, we started doing very well. I think we got the award for the 2022 year being the third largest agency. That year, they had bought out the number one agency, which was BLX. And then we were really, up to battle, started in 2023 to be the number one largest agency, which we became. So as things, started to progress, ultimately GlobalTranz was, by itself or owned by private equity venture capitalists until July 2021. And to be honest, there wasn't a whole lot of problems. It was a great organization to work for. And I'm not saying it was perfect. No place is perfect. Everything has its problems. But until, this merger, as Tom Medine would like to publicly call it, although it was not a merger, it was an LBO or a levered buyout, come to find out. And we can get into why someone would LBO later on. But through an LBO, they acquired GlobalTranz, and they said that it was going to be, when they marketed it to us, because I think many of the agents were afraid when this happened of, what does this mean for me? What does this do for me? They want to say, hey, this is going to be great for you. Nothing's going to change. If anything, we're going to be able to get better LTL rates, by homogenizing the three companies together, which ended up not happening. So really the first year, not a lot had changed. And I got a chance to meet Rob Rose personally. He was the president of Worldwide Express at the time. He was overseeing the GlobalTranz brand. Unfortunately, in October 2022, he tragically died of a heart attack, I believe. And him and I had, got along. And really, after that point, like the next day, a gentleman named Joel Klum stepped in, which he's getting personally implicated and indicted in the RICO lawsuit along with the corporation as a bad actor. And he first tried to kind of come in and act, like he was friendly. I'm here to help things. And then over the next few months, we went down to Dallas. We met with them, Natasha and myself, and really started to kind of peel back things that not only we thought were happening to us, but were happening to everybody else. And so we kept asking more questions. And that ultimately kind of led to, what ended up happening at the end. Kind of the straw that broke the camel's back was one of our largest customers who's also in the lawsuit. Redcon one of the largest, fastest growing supplement companies in the world, was one of our largest customers. And we had been with them for about 3 years. They went in between that customer and ourselves. We had a great relationship with them. We were very open, honest, and transparent with that customer. And ultimately, they offered that customer a $1.5+ million credit to get them to stop working with us. They instructed all their employees no longer to talk to me. Some of them I was friends with. And then they got them into a 3-year exclusivity contract, not just for the freight, but also for the parcel shipping. And they made it seem like we lost that customer to C.H. Robinson. A few weeks later, we got an email stating that was not the fact. We accidentally got tagged on an email showing that Worldwide Express was running all the business. And, ultimately, we had some conversations, and due to us bringing things up, they were fearful we were going to have other agents, join us. They terminated us wrongfully. June 2nd, 2023, I was on a family vacation with my 1-year-old daughter. over in Europe at the time. They knew we were over there. They terminated us without proper cause. There was supposed to be a 30-day period, a 10-day cure period. They forgoed all of that, terminated us immediately, and then they went on a smear campaign to target all of our customers. Our customers were actually calling us and sending us emails, which I have to this day. They were sending our customers emails saying they had acquired or purchased us. So they were publicly putting that out there. Hindsight, they probably should have purchased us, which we can get into later on. That happened, and then things just started to escalate from there. One of their employees, which we included in the RICO lawsuit, hacked into my email database, and so we have all the proof of that as well. So that's kind of what set the stage for this whole thing, and how we kind of got into this legal battle.
Well, when did you kind of get to the point where you were like, hey, too much has happened here. We gotta, I gotta reach out to attorneys and look into doing a lawsuit. When did that kind of, get going behind the scenes?
So, immediately
after. Let me caution in terms of attorney-client privilege. Let's not reveal when you first started contacting attorneys, but maybe the time period where you started to, as I would say, smell a rat.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so we had kind of started to, smell around, after we got terminated. We, started reaching out to people, seeing, who we could find. If you've never had a legal battle, finding great attorneys is not the easiest task. And part of the reason they also felt so confident in doing what they tried to do to us, and as I found out, doing what they've done to other people, is they're a $5 billion corporation. And their chief legal officer, Charlene York, told me in a conversation with many other C-level executives on the phone that they were a $5 billion company and they had more resources than me. And I asked her what that meant. And she said, you know exactly what that means. So it's fear by intimidation, fear by money, that they're going to bury you with legal fees. So we started looking around. We found one attorney out of Texas.
Again, Dylan, let's not go into when you found an attorney or when you first contacted or anything about that. Okay, that's all privilege, and we need to protect that privilege.
But so September 2023 was kind of our first big thing that we did, and then as we started to learn more and more, we ended up filing the RICO lawsuit in December of 2024.
And what kind of went into you from? Can you pronounce your? I wanted to make sure I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Rogge.
Like Froggy. Just think of Rogge.
Rogge. So what, when you took on this case, was this your first case in logistics, or what kind of questions, or what made you think? Because you said, I know when we were talking, you've represented some, billion-dollar big players, $2 billion, and you're obviously a big player in these type of lawsuits with big companies. What kind of questions did you ask, or what made you think hey, this is a case I want to take. This has some merit. Maybe walk us through kind of your side of things.
Well, my side of it is I did a lot of due diligence and checked out Dylan and Natasha. They checked out. I looked at the evidence that they have. And what's really important about this case, this is not a he said, she said, or he said case. There are documents created contemporaneously with the events at issue that show that these defendants knew what they were doing. It wasn't a mistake. It was intentional in terms of hidden charges and charging consumers and not paying the agents their percentage of those charges. And when you see something like that, and you see something that's intentional, that's what leads jurors to award punitive damages. That's what makes a case compelling, as opposed to just a run-of-the-mill case. The other thing that struck a responsive chord with me, and why I was interested, and I'm not just doing this pure hourly. I've got a contingent percentage, so I believe in it with my pocketbook. The fact is that this isn't just about Dylan or Natasha or Freitas. It's about the whole industry. It's going to impact everybody that's watching this podcast, and it's going to be, I think, a game changer and a watershed case that people will talk about for years to come. And it's our hope that we will clean up this industry. And we're not saying that all the logistics companies, freight companies are bad. No, but there are some bad apples, and that's what we're going to shine a light on. And that's what excites me. I can take or leave cases as I see fit, but when I can do good for many, many other people and for the consumers, well, that's a case that I just love to take.
It's interesting because you see the same thing with kind of what you mentioned, where Dylan was mentioning. You see a lot of cases from billion-dollar brokerages, multi-billion dollars, against individuals on, sometimes a non-compete, non-solicit front or different things. The mindset is we're going to, run you out of money. And that seems to be.
It's literally, Matt, that's a great point. It's literally what lawyers jokingly call death by legal fees. And I've seen that where it's a great case, but the individual is a small time or it's a small company. And I've represented some of those small companies that might have 10 or 20 or 30 million in revenues, and they're going up against what I call $1 billion legal bully. And they delay, they deny, they drag it out, and eventually a smaller individual or company gets what we call litigation fatigue. And that's a playbook that big time corporate defendants use. And I don't think that's any secret.
Yeah, just for context for anybody listening, we talk about these big companies. GlobalTranz Worldwide and Unishippers combined make up the fourth largest U.S. brokerage and around $4.9 billion in annual revenue. So as Rogge is saying, it is like a classic David versus Goliath case. You listener here, Dylan talked about starting his company with his last $900, building it into the, like a true just American success story, right? $900 building this big agency and then being taken advantage of by a large corporation. So yeah, I'm very excited to see what unfolds. And it's very relevant, especially for Matt and I. Black Box is primarily an agency model, and then Matt recruits agents for a company. So it should, I'll definitely be tuned in. Not only because you guys are on the podcast, but it's very interesting for the whole landscape of logistics.
And one of the things we haven't talked about is the fact that they hold out to these agents or business development companies, hey, you can build a book of business and then we'll buy it. But Dylan can talk to this. They'll come to you instead of paying 7 to 10 times EBITDA, they'll try to get you for 2 or 3. And then if they don't get that, then they potentially run you, terminate you, and then try to get your clients away, which is exactly what they did to Dylan.
No, 100%. With their Unishippers model, it's a bit different. They have a franchise. You have to sign a franchise contract. It has a pre-negotiated buyout on it. But with the agent model, it's still on their social media to this day. Come build your business. Build it how you want. There's no, cap. You can, live the American dream, and if you work hard, you can make as much money as you want to, humanly possibly make, and that you're building your business at your customers. Well, you can ask anybody in the logistics industry, and we have, experts that are, in our corner. People are buying logistics businesses for 5 to 10 times EBITDA. What Tom Medina or what Worldwide Express wants to pay, they want to pay 2.5 times EBITDA, 1.75 times EBITDA. They want to buy you off of your split. So they're not even buying you off of, the full 100%. They're buying you off of, your 70-30 split, or whatever that may be. So it's a smoke and mirrors type of deal. They don't want to actually offer you, 5, 8, 10 times EBITDA. And, Natasha and I had those conversations with Joel and with Tom Medine. I asked him, hey, how do you buy businesses? How did you buy BLX? How did you buy Volition? And that's the type of answer that we got, and I was never going to, be willing to do that. And then we were also bringing up all of the other issues that we were finding out and being very vocal and transparent, because at the time, I'm planning to want to sell back my business to them. We want to do, what is best, not just for us, but for all the other agents. So we were truly trying to help make the company a better place to be, while they were not. As Rogge said, why this case is so compelling is, GlobalTranz and Worldwide wanted to say that we have baseless claims, we're throwing dust in the air, of course, having a denial, non-denial type of comment. But we had millions of documents that we've gotten, through the legal process. And we have over 1,500 hot documents. So what we're just saying is not allegations. It's not allegedly. And I get people have to publicly say that. But if you looked at our petitions, if you went on to Pacer and found them, there's all sorts of redactions, all those blacked out things. That's the Bates numbers. That's the evidence. And, hopefully soon enough, we'll be able to share those things publicly, because that's exactly what they don't want to have happen. And Rogge would have taken this case, if it wasn't for that. Probably because, everything we allege, all this bad behavior, price fixing, upcharging the insurance. We have documents, from the top level executives talking about these things, admitting to these things. So it's not just, we think it happened, we know it happened, we have the evidence, and I can't wait to share it with you. And so hopefully that'll be sooner rather than later.
And if I can just jump in, Dylan raised a great point. If they didn't do anything wrong, if they claim that this lawsuit is meritless, why don't they agree to unredact these legal pleadings so the public can get the full story with the contemporaneous documents that were created at the events at issue, right? In other words, let us unredact and let the chips fall where they may. But I predict they're going to fight that because they don't want to have transparency. They don't want the public and the regulators to see the documents that they created back in the day.
Yep. Are you guys' plans kind of, based on what you guys just said? I mean, and you don't have to answer this if this is an appropriate question, but I mean, it doesn't sound like you guys have any plans of settling this lawsuit.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that's important. It's not just about the money, although Dylan and Natasha have suffered very, very significant damages. But we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to expose this. And hopefully this lawsuit will cause these defendants to start doing business the right way, the way that all of us in the freight and logistics industry expect honorable companies to do business. That's the primary goal.
So for everybody tuned in that is not super familiar, including myself, forgive my ignorance, what does the timeline look like on something like this with where you guys are now for what you expect to happen, barring any, unforeseen situations? I mean, as far as going to trial or litigation, give us a timeline, a rough timeline.
Sure. The good news is we have a smart federal judge that runs a great courtroom, Judge Godby, and I hope and anticipate that we're going to get this to trial within 2 years. And then we'll be getting some answers along the way. So typically you're talking 18 months to 3 years. But as I said, the federal judge is great, and hopefully we'll get something, a trial date within 2 years or so.
Awesome. So as you guys have kind of gone public with this, have you been approached by potentially any other agents under the GlobalTranz tree that said, hey, I've had similar things happen? Yeah, you have.
I've had almost 100 people reach out to me via LinkedIn. People had my phone number. People texting me. I had one of the top agencies still there call me and thank me for bringing this out, that, hey, we knew this was happening, but, no one's been able to stand up to these, corporate giants, because you can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on legal fees very, very easily. And most people, they are too risk adverse to do it. They don't want to blow up what they currently have. And so they're not willing to do it. I knew that I built a massive business in 3 years. And they, felt comfortable that they could do this to someone, not knowing that I could build another business again, which is exactly what we did. In 1 year, I built another $20 million business in less than 12 months, and we're continuing building every single day. And I do that, because for one, I'm going to show this wasn't just some fluke accident, that we weren't seemingly successful. In a document, they tried to say I was seemingly successful. That no, I was successful. I could be successful anywhere. And now I have even more of a fire, because for one, I'm not just representing myself. Of course, I have to be able to legally pay for these things. So that's a great fire in the ass to be able to build another business that's even bigger and better. But two, I'm representing all the other agents. And so after we went public with this, I had over 100 agents reach out to me. I had an agent the other day reach out and say, hey, I want to chat with you. What do I need to do to get involved in the lawsuit with you? So I have about 5, 6, 7 agents right now who've asked me, what can we do? So there's going to be more plaintiffs that get added to this. I know.
Are those current agents or former agents of GlobalTranz?
Both people who've already left. Many agents have talked to me how they've actually started peeling their business away from GlobalTranz. They may still be there because they don't want to work for people like this. I mean, they are legitimately stealing money from hardworking Americans, people who put their blood, sweat, and tears. They put everything on the line. You know, you're a business development company. So what they want you to do is they want you to develop the business, and then they can make money on the side, not off of your split, or they may try to steal your business. And it's ultimately why, you know, we want federal regulators to look into this, because this merger that they call it, which was not a merger, it really muddies the waters of what access should Worldwide Express employees had to come in and look at GlobalTranz accounts, all of the history, all of the numbers, and then go in and start cherry picking the accounts that they want, not only for their parcel program, but for their LTL, for their full truckload, et cetera. So, yeah, like I said, I've had a lot of agents reaching out to me. They said, hey, we knew this was happening. We just didn't maybe have all the evidence. No one was willing to come forward. What do we need to do to join you? So you can do a mass action. You can do a class action. Rogge's very familiar with this, and another one of our attorneys, Michael Hurst, as well. They've done massive class action lawsuits. And a class action of this size, when you look at the discrepancy in the pricing, so they weren't being honest with us, what they were paying the carriers is kind of similar to that YRC lawsuit that I'm sure we're all familiar with. They weren't being honest about what they were paying the carriers versus what they were telling us the cost was. They were adding money to the insurance. So saying that, hey, the premium's $10 and really they're telling us the minimum is $35. Having the bad debt fund, which is 100% not legitimate. We can go into that if you like, because that might be interesting for other agents to hear about.
Yeah, I'm curious about that, because it's the bad debt is about, I would say about 50% of agent programs have them, 50% don't. I don't know about Will. I know we don't have one. But yeah, I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah. So with bad debt, you know, you have to think about this is as GlobalTranz, they are the creditor. Okay, so there's very strict regulations about creditors, debitors, et cetera, collection efforts. But they're the creditor. They're approving the credit line. They're the one telling you, hey, this customer's approved for 100,000, net 30, net 14. Okay, we'll let them be net 60, whatever the case may be. And then if that customer doesn't pay, then they would take back your commissions at either 90 or 120 days. So you've lost your commissions. I always like to make this analogy to a real estate agent. So if you're a real estate agent, you're providing your services that you've built a career on, you go sell this house and the bank is giving a loan. If that person gets foreclosed on in 2 months, the bank doesn't come to you and say, hey, Matt, hey, Will, you owe us all the money for the house. And they don't even come back and take your commissions because the real estate agent provided the service to get the house sold. They did their part. But in these agency models, after 90, 120 days, they pull back your commissions. I know GlobalTranz holds back 1% of net revenue the entire year. Other programs I've heard do up to 2%. They all do it slightly different. They hold money back. They put it in an escrow account. They put it in some sort of account. Potentially, they're making money off of your money during that time, which is also wrong. But then at the end of the year, there's still this carrier cost that's up for grabs. So they use your money to then pay for the carrier costs. And so at that point, you've paid for the invoice. You as Matt should be able to own that invoice. But at GlobalTranz, they wouldn't even close out the invoice in the system. They would keep the invoice open. So there was I and other agents would reach out. Hey, I paid for the invoice. Why can't you at least close it out? Oh, we can't do that. Well, then we caught them selling those invoices to third-party collection companies after we had already paid for the invoice. And if they collected on that invoice, they would never give us that money back. So you were the creditor. You established the credit line. The customer is the debtor. You cannot just transfer over a credit line to Dylan Admire or to Freight Essentials without, for one, letting that debtor know that it's happening, and two, you'd have to write me over that debt. So the fact that they wouldn't write us over the debt, and I have emails asking them to write it over to me after I've already paid for it, now I can't go sue that customer if I want to. Now, doing things on my own, or, you know, Matt or Will, whoever, you could go sue that customer if they didn't pay, and you have every right to. So you can't sue the customer, number one, and two, you can't even use it for your taxes as bad debt. So they are like triple or quadruple dipping on a bad debt fund. And when I brought this up to Charlene York, February 2023, they wanted us to sign a contract. I asked her, I said, how do you think this is legal? If we went to court, how do you think a judge would rule? She said, I feel very confident about this, Dylan. I said, well, it's not legal. She said, well, this is how all the other agency programs are doing it, so we feel confident. Well, I always use the analogy. If everyone's selling drugs on the street corner, it's not legal. Maybe no one's gotten caught yet and no one's tried to stand up to a big multi-billion-dollar company. But the concept of it from a legal premise, why, as Rogge said, we love to get the regulators involved in this, it's not legal. Banking institutions, are literally governed by people overseeing these things. And so freight's kind of this weird thing as you have a company like GlobalTranz or Worldwide acting as a bank, but then they're just kind of doing a bunch of things behind the scenes. So from my perspective, that's how to get into the bad debt. And I know some other companies do it the same way. Hopefully after hearing about this, I've had other companies reaching out to me saying, hey, we're really watching this. And they're probably watching it because some of them are probably doing the same thing. And hopefully, like Rogge said, hopefully it cleans up the entire industry, because the freight industry or the supply chain industry, as we all know, is one of the most important industries, in the world. Everything you touch, eat, see was on trucks and trucks and trucks, and it needs to get cleaned up. So
how did this, a lot of people I know are interested, how did this get leveled to a RICO lawsuit? I think that was probably, you don't hear, I don't know this, but I haven't heard of any other RICO lawsuits. When you were looking at this from a legal standpoint, Rogge, what kind of made you, think that, hey, we have enough evidence here to, file this as a RICO lawsuit?
Sure. Well, based on the evidence that we saw, there were multiple people that were taken advantage of, not simply Freight Essentials and Dylan and Natasha. Second of all, we saw a conspiracy among multiple defendants, which is what is one of the things required for RICO. And it's not something that I filed lightheartedly or offhand. It's something that we studied very carefully, and the evidence was there to support a RICO lawsuit. And that's why we filed same. And it was one way to get evidence that we should be able to get in a RICO lawsuit, given the issues that a RICO lawsuit involves.
And just for context for anybody listening that's not familiar, RICO is an acronym for Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. So for me, it is strange. I'm not very familiar with the law, but when I think of RICO, I think of like the mob, gangs, and then to hear it associated with Worldwide Express, it's interesting. So, yeah.
Well, Will, you raise a great point. RICO started out as a criminal enterprise, and now there's a civil RICO that burgeoned out of that, and it's something that's filed all the time, but it is something that is significant and serious, and not something that we did willy-nilly.
Yeah, sounds like it. I want to backtrack just a little bit, Dylan. You had mentioned that you started a new company. So one, I really respect that. A lot of people going through something like this, they might not bounce back so quickly. And I think that's a testament to maybe when you're giving your background, talking about being a college athlete and all these characteristics that you develop and then bring it into the real world. So that's it's very admirable. I got to ask, are you doing it as another agency model? Have you found a better suitor, or are you doing it under your own authority? What does that look like?
Yeah, we're doing everything. After we had left, we went to an agency model for a short period of time and went there. And then ultimately, after doing research, when you're in a lot of these agency models, they make it seem like it's so hard to get your MC. And I'm not saying it's a walk in the park and you need to have cash. And, luckily we had made some very smart investments with our money over time, for one, to be able to afford the legal fees, and two, if we wanted to go do a venture like that. And so that's ultimately what we decided to do. I want to have fate over my own destiny. I don't want to be sharing my customer information, with anybody else, where they can, use it and abuse it. So we decided to go that route. I built some great relationships in the industry. It's ultimately why I love so much about this industry, is you can build some really great relationships, lifelong friends, LTL carriers that I've, been able to go to dinner with and meet and have great conversations, and people who are entrepreneurial, spirited. So that's what I love about the organization, is the people aspect of it, making relationships with customers, with carriers, with truck drivers. And that's ultimately how we built the business again, getting out there and working hard, going to trade shows, getting out in front of people. Most people like me. That's the funny thing, and most of the other agents, we go to agent conferences and they would all want to come and have conversations. And we had great conversations with them about how they were growing their business, how I was growing my business. They wanted to ask questions, and I'm an open book when it comes to that kind of stuff of, hey, how did you do this? Or how can I help grow my business? Or you want to give me some pointers? And then, Worldwide Express and GlobalTranz didn't like me, and that's okay. But yeah, that's how we've kind of, built the business and what we're doing now.
Very interesting. Yeah, congratulations. Yeah, that's awesome. So I don't know if you guys are going to be able to answer this, or if it's, Do you have any idea of the monetary compensation that you're looking for through the lawsuit? Is there a number out there? Are you able to disclose that?
Well, at this time, we're having a renowned legal expert witness who's been involved in some major cases. I'm not at liberty to reveal his or her name, but they are looking at the documents. There's still documents that we need to get from the defendants to finalize damage model. But let me just say this, it was significant. If you look at the business that Dylan had built that they took from him and just the customers alone that he took, whether you use a 5 to 7 or whatever times EBITDA analysis, or you simply say these customers are generating this type of revenue and this type of EBITDA, and you can forecast that and an increase over time, that's another total separate damage model. But let me say this, it is significant, and we'll be able to put a finer point on it. Again, we're not going to presume that we know all the damages or throw out a number. We're having, and we do things the right way. Dylan wants to do things the right way. We're going to get an expert witness that's qualified, certified, and to give us that number.
No, 100%. I mean, I think once we can legally say it, I think most people will be very intrigued by our expert witness. He's one of the best in the world, been on some very notable cases, very excited to work with him. And he's a certified fraud expert as well. So lots of fraudulent activity that was done in this, tortious interference, et cetera. So as Rogge said, we're still needing documents. They're trying to fight tooth and nail about things, but we will be victorious as we have been victorious. I have no doubt about that. We have a lot of evidence already. But as I had said on the Freight Waves podcast, and as I'll say today, the big number, that's going to intrigue people is as we get other agents to join. As I said, I had over 100 plus former or current agents reach out to me. Several want to be included now. So I urge anybody else to reach out, because, that's going to be the next thing. And if it was a class action, it would be a multi-$100 million class action. And we have documents to support that. The amount they were making on a yearly basis, just off of the price discrepancy on the LTL shipping. And what we mean by that, if someone isn't familiar, is what the actual carrier, so Saia, FedEx, Estes, was invoicing them versus what they were telling us the cost was. So when you logged in their system, it tells you, as any of the TMS systems, the cost is $200. Well, they weren't really paying $200. They were actually getting billed for $150, pocketing 100% of that. And then whatever your gross margin split with them was, then they were making part of it, and you as the agent were making part of it. And let's just say that would be hundreds of millions of dollars. If you went back to 2016, 2018, until this current time frame, that alone would be hundreds of millions of dollars. You add in the insurance aspect, you add in the bad debt aspect, and you add in them strategically stealing accounts from people. And I've talked to multiple other agents who had accounts stolen, actively being stolen, actively having Worldwide Express employees reach out to their customers who are current GlobalTranz customers. All those things combined in a class action or mass action, hundreds of millions of dollars, and so that's ultimately what's at stake here. This isn't a small time thing. I wouldn't be going after this if it wasn't. Rogge wouldn't be going after this if it wasn't. And someone needs to stand up to someone like a Worldwide Express, GlobalTranz, and be able to expose them for what they're really doing and how they're screwing hardworking Americans out of the dollars that they deserve. And whether you're agent number 1 or you're agent number 450, it doesn't matter how big or small, because at the end of the day, you still have to provide for your family. If you have kids at home, whatever it is that you're doing with your money, if they're screwing you out of 5, 10, 15, 20%, that's food that you couldn't put on the table for your family. And to me, that's why it's so important. And as when we went public with this, many articles were written, about 500 media outlets picked this up, that this is a landmark lawsuit. It's probably one of the biggest lawsuits to hit the logistics industry. And if they take this all the way to court, it's going to change the agent model forever. I can almost guarantee you that.
Yeah. So
how long do you think this was going on for? I mean, do you guys, I know you said there was some different changes when it was bought out, and how long do you anticipate that this was happening for?
Well, I had one, I won't name his name currently, but he is named in the RICO lawsuit. One of the people who was high up at GlobalTranz, we had many conversations with him. He knew the pricing was happening since at least 2016 when he joined the company. I've had other agents reach out to me who were started there in 2012, and they noticed pricing differences. There was actually a glitch in the system, they said once, and they saw the real carrier cost versus what they were paying. So I think it was going back, one of the top executives said back to 2016 when Renee Krug actually came into GlobalTranz in 2018. She tried taking these fees off, he said, then they ended up putting them back on. So I think it was happening for quite a long time. But I think it got just tremendously worse after this levered buyout that happened in July 2021. So it's been happening for years. It just got exponentially worse because you bring in a competitor. Worldwide Express was a competitor to GlobalTranz. And then not only are you making money illegitimately, but you're starting to poach and pick off accounts that you think you want for yourself. And I mean, from a business perspective, why pay an agent 70% when you can steal their account and pay some W-2 employee 2% to run the account? You can see why someone wants to do it, especially when they want to IPO, because their whole goal, and there was an article that came out in Bloomberg Business in 2024 talking about how they hired JP Morgan Chase in order to get them ready for an IPO. That was their ultimate goal, was to IPO. So if you ask yourself, why would a company do all these malicious things? Well, if you're going to IPO, you want your EBITDA, your profit numbers to be as high as possible. So you're making money illegitimately, you're stealing accounts. And when they were stealing accounts, they weren't keeping them on the GlobalTranz. They were taking them and moving them onto the Worldwide Express brand. So you're trying to just pump it up. So when you go try to IPO in 2025, what JP Morgan Chase was going to help them do, which I don't believe they're going to be able to do now, especially with a lawsuit like this, that was their ultimate goal. All the executives want to make tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars selfishly on the backs of agents. And that's why they were doing what they were doing, because of IPO 2025. And that's why I think this RICO lawsuit is going to be very interesting. Federal regulators are going to be very interested in it, because one person you don't want to screw with is the SEC. And when you want to go public, the SEC is going to start looking at your books. They're going to start uncovering things. They're going to be interested in a RICO lawsuit. Those are kind of some of the things that why they were doing what they were doing.
Do you think this is changing now since this lawsuit happens? Obviously, you said you're in touch with a lot of current agents at GlobalTranz as well. I mean, do you think there's they're making some changes internally, based on this lawsuit?
You would think that would be the intelligent thing to do, because you've been caught red-handed. Now, like I said, they released an internal thing, which I had several agents send me. They sent the thing out to the agents.
Let's not talk about that, the evidence.
But, so they're trying to say that it's baseless, it's smoke and mirrors, we're throwing dust in the air. But I talked to some agents, even as of yesterday, and they were telling me stories that have happened this past week of Worldwide Express employees reaching out to their customers. And because they have such a good relationship with their customers are letting them know, hey, just so you know, a Worldwide Express employee just reached out to me soliciting my business. A very big agent who had a very big account that had some bad things happen with it happened in the past several months, them terminating agents illegitimately. I'm not kidding you when I say I've had a lot of agents reach out to me telling me those stories. I think what we did motivated them. It's always the hardest to be the first one to speak. You put yourself up for the most risk. I'm okay. I'll take on that challenge. As Will said, playing college football, I had a lot of different adversity in my life that maybe on first glance you wouldn't see. So I'm a very resilient individual, very persistent, I'm very consistent. And so, I was willing to spearhead that. I don't think they've stopped doing what they're doing. You would think you would, but from what agents are telling me and people who recently left, they're still doing it to this day. So obviously they're not taking it very seriously. And to Rogge's point, that's why this needs to be exposed. Because if you're still doing these things, you clearly are not learning the lesson that should be learned through something like this. And as he said, that's where punitive damages come into play. And that can be a huge thing. The Supreme Court's ruled on punitive damages. Someone could win $40 million in a case and punitive damages take it up to $400 million. That's a bad day. And with what they've done to us, punitive damages is going to be very high in this case, and we're going to push on that very hard because they need to learn a lesson. You don't mess with people. You don't steal money from people. This business, you can make enough money being ethical and moral. There's no reason to do facetious things and try to hurt someone who's just working hard trying to make an honest living.
Well said.
Rogge, what do you have? Maybe some points we haven't got into yet. What are some things maybe you'd like to add to this conversation from a legal standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I would say this to anybody watching this podcast, whether they're know of an abuse in the logistics industry, in a hospital, a company polluting the environment, et cetera. I tell people all the time that abuses continue to happen, and all you have to do is think of the three words: Cosby, Weinstein, and Epstein. Why did they get away with it for so many years? It's because an individual feels scared. They're not going to believe me. I'm going to have to come forward and take the heat from this very wealthy individual or company. And the only way we make our society better is when people stand up, speak out, and are going to come public with information they have. And hopefully the media takes interest and does their great investigative job, which is one of the great bulwarks in our society against corporate abuses or government abuses, is the media and digging for the truth. And so I encourage people in whatever walk of life, in whatever situation, to come forward when they know of an abuse and speak out to the regulators or whoever it may be. And that's one of the reasons I'm so proud to represent Dylan and Natasha. I mean, they got knocked down, and they got knocked down hard, but they didn't take it. They spoke out, they're speaking out, they're investing their time, money, energy, and efforts. When they're trying to run a business where they've got a young child, and I am so honored to represent people like Dylan's, what keeps me going, because the law business is not an easy business, and we're against formidable opponents with great lawyers. So I'm under no illusions that this is going to be a long, engaging fight, but it's a fight that needs to be fought.
Maybe give some of our viewers kind of a background on that. Like a company like GlobalTranz, 5 million. How many attorneys are they having work on this case? How many?
Well, each case is different, but I would anticipate that each defendant would have 3 to 4 to 5 lawyers. But as I like to joke, it's 5-on-1 against me, and it's not a fair fight. I've got them outnumbered. We in Texas, we have a great saying: one riot, one ranger. So in my view, quantity is not a substitute for quality. And look, I feel like I have the evidence. I have the ammo in this case to win. And I don't care how many lawyers that you bring to the fight. If you don't have the facts and the evidence and truth on your side, I'm old-fashioned enough to believe that ultimately when you go to trial and you have a smart judge and a smart jury, that you're going to prevail if you're in the right. I don't care how many lawyers the other side has. They can't change the facts. And in this case, in my view, we have very compelling facts supporting our claims, or I wouldn't be here today.
Especially on a contingency. I mean, I thought that was interesting what you said earlier. I mean, you have this on a contingency, that your win a percentage, worked out. I mean, I'm not any lawyer or anything by that means, but I mean, I don't think lawyers generally do that if they're, thinking there's a strong chance they're going to lose.
Sure. No, 100%. I mean, we've had, as Rogge would say, and we won't get into any details, but there have been other law firms who have reached out to Sky Blue saying, hey, we saw the case. This is a great case. We hope you do well. We'd love to help you. If there's anything that we do it on contingency as well. So this isn't just, Rogge believing in this. We've had so many people reach out, other law firms, other people, because what we wrote in there is compelling and it's factual. And that's the biggest thing that, I want to get across is, I'm not the type of person, I'm not a petty person. Because as Rogge said, and as anyone who's been in a legal battle, it's a long, hard deal, not just financially. It takes time, it takes emotion, taking time away from my young daughter. I take that very seriously. So for me, if we didn't have the cold hard facts, which they know what they did, they know we have the facts, and they're just trying to do the David versus Goliath. Let's draw this thing out, because the funny thing with lawsuits is you can go and you can look at Pacer, you can see all the different lawsuits that's been filed against someone. No one's ever taken them to the point that we're about to take them to. They've never, TQL got sued for several $100 million for an employee misclassification lawsuit several years ago. That's partially still underway. C.H. Robinson's been sued, but this company's never been sued. So they're probably a bit naive about what's really going to happen, because as he said, you can't argue with the facts. When I have an email with the CEO or the CFO admitting something that is, illegal and illegitimate, how do you talk your way out of that in a deposition? How do you talk your way out of that in a courtroom with 12 honest jurors who are hardworking Americans just like us in Dallas County? You can't do that. The facts speak for themselves. So they can say, that we're throwing dust in the air, it's baseless, all they want. That's okay. I've fought opposition my entire life from when I was an athlete. When you're an athlete, the news, they talk crap about you. They tell you you're terrible, and then you got to go out and prove them wrong the next day. So, that's okay. They can say whatever they want. The facts will speak for themselves. We have a great team of attorneys. We have Rogge. We have several other law firms on it as well. We have some great experts lined up. So we're ready for whatever we need to do. And ultimately, I said that the agent model, I think, will change, and it's going to change for the better. I think a lot of companies use agency models as a cover, ultimately to probably misclassify employees as well. You have opt-in agents, you have opt-out agents. There's different types of agency models, and a lot of them probably just don't want to pay the tax dollars that they would need to pay in FICA, Medicare, healthcare, all that different type of stuff. So there's multitudes of reasons why I think a lot of these companies are illegitimately abusing the agent model like they are today.
Now, do you think there's a possibility? I know you mentioned the TQL case. I think that one, and I don't know if it was 12 years, 11 years after it went through appeal after time period. I know you're hoping to get this to trial, you said, in under 2 years. But is this one of these things that, like that TQL case, Billy, we could be hearing about this for the next 5 to 10 years before it's all settled? Is that a possibility as well?
That's certainly a possibility. And again, that's in the big corporate defendant's typical playbook, and it can happen. And that's one frustrating thing about the legal process. But we're going to do everything we can to expedite this, to get to the truth and get that out and get it resolved or tried as quickly as possible. So, I believe in the court system, and even if it does go to appeal, typically all you're doing is delaying the inevitable in that situation. But we're prepared for even if it goes into a long haul fight, we're prepared for that.
Well, and as long as Rogge is fine with me saying it, that after we released the RICO lawsuit, we did it on Thursday. Media picked it up. We were on FreightWaves, every Yahoo Finance, Yahoo News, everyone picked it up. They actually reached out to us.
But
we'll just say they reached out to us. And a company who doesn't have things to hide, doesn't want to actually, have these things exposed. So they're not feeling great about this. They know what we have. They know the evidence. And a company of their size, going versus David versus Goliath, like Rogge said, would not have reached out to us to want to have a conversation if they had not done anything. They know what they've done. They know the stakes, or hopefully they know the stakes. Because as we said, we have our lawsuit, but you can do a mass action, you can do a class action, and the more and more people that keep coming to me, that's going to be a distinct possibility. And if that does happen, that's a multi-$100 million deal, and we'll find a great legal team to do that as well.
Awesome. Well, Matt, do you have anything else that you want to ask about? We covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, I think we've covered most everything. I don't know if anyone in the comments has any questions before. We had a fair amount of people tune in, so if anyone, before we kind of wrap things up, has any questions they want us to ask. But is there anything you guys want to say that you think we missed?
The only thing I'll add is if people go online and see the lawsuit, a lot of plaintiffs' lawyers just file a plain vanilla or a very concise, pithy, hey, the defendants did wrong, they did some bad things, conclusory statements. We went to great lengths to lay out our case, put our aces out on the table for everybody to see in excruciating detail. So that's a bit unusual, but we think it's compelling. As Dylan has said, and as I've said, we think the evidence is compelling, and we put together a very detailed lawsuit. So it's not just BS or dust in the wind, as they've said. It's a delineation in detail of the evidence that supports these claims.
And you said some of this information might be publicly released in the next month or so.
We hope so.
You're hoping so? Okay.
Yeah. Well, if you haven't had a chance to look at the complaint, it's over 65 pages. Most lawsuits are not that long. It takes a lot of time, energy, effort, and money to do that. And you don't write 65 pages of dust in the air. Especially when a lot of it's redacted, and those are all facts and evidence and links to documents. Hopefully we'll be able to share this publicly because the public, deserves to know. The court system in the U.S. believes in an open court system, because if I'm filing something, other people should be able to see it. I see in the comments, Brandon Bell, thanks for tuning in, man. He said he thinks 3 other brokers, should be able to be looked into their agent programs as well. I can guarantee you, sitting right here, right now today, there's hundreds of agent programs. This shit is happening all across the board. There might be some good players in the game. I'm sure you guys got a great thing going. As you mentioned, Matt, you don't have a bad debt fund, et cetera. So, every company has its intricacies, but the open court system needs to allow this stuff to be seen, because this is happening to many, many agents. It's not just me. It's not just GlobalTranz. It's not just worldwide, but they're going to be the ones who would be exposed, and they're going to be at the mercy of the public because I decided to speak up. As he said, I'm not the individual who's willing to sit there and just take it. I had some buddies of mine, I had friends, I had customers say, Dylan, why don't you just move on? You can build a business. Why don't you just go build another one? Because it's principle. I'm a very moral and ethical person. I believe God has a plan for all of us, whether it's a good time or a hard time. He's going to get you through it. He's going to provide you with what you need. And I couldn't look at myself in the mirror at 85 years old and know, man, I let this sit on me for 50 years. I got a 3-year-old daughter. And to me, your last name and your word is all you have in the world, to be honest. So that's why it's so crazy to me when you look at some of these individuals, like top executives at big companies, top executives at Worldwide Express, at GlobalTranz, how they can look at themselves in the mirror at night, knowing they're screwing hardworking Americans, know they're making illegitimate money with probably a hope to IPO and ride off into the sunset. How do you look at yourself in the mirror? Because I can tell you, I couldn't look at my 3-year-old daughter when she's 18 years old and say, hey, your dad did everything he could to make sure our name and our word, stuck, and that you should be proud to have that last name. I can't do that. So they chose to pick a fight with the wrong individual. Because when I played college football and my name was on the back, with hundreds of thousands of people watching us, and on ESPN, on ABC and NBC, I took that personally. I was representing my family, and I still do that to this day. Not just my parents, but now, my daughter, etc. So to me, it's very serious. To me, that's why I can't be beat. I do not quit. I will not bow down. And whatever I have done in life, that's why we've been successful. As Will said, being able to, grow another company very rapidly. So I was the wrong individual to pick the fight with. A lot of people probably would have laid down and died and said, poor me, cried about it, maybe gone and done something else. But that's not what we're going to do. So I said, Brandon, I appreciate you tuning in, having the comments. Yeah, I do think a lot of other people should be looked into because they're probably doing it just the same. And then they all need to be exposed because it's wrong. And in life, you should be able to make money honestly and openly. And if you think you need to lie, steat, and chill to get ahead, it's going to catch up with you.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah, well, it was great having you guys on, and we appreciate you guys joining us. And who knows? Maybe when time comes and those documents can be released, we'll do another show and we'll talk again. We look forward to following this, and appreciate you guys for joining us.
Well, thank you for looking into this. It's really important to everybody.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I wish you guys the best of success this year. 2025 is off to a crazy start. We got new president in office. We got wildfires in California. We got trucks sliding off the road. So it's going to be an eventful year, and hopefully we'll have more to share with you guys soon. We'll keep you posted. I appreciate anyone who joined and is following this, and everyone who will watch this after it's been recorded. So I appreciate everyone.
Stay safe and stay warm.
Yeah, thanks, guys. See ya.
Thank you.
That was fun. It was really interesting. Definitely going to be following this closely, and happy they were able to come on and join us.
Yeah, man. Hopefully we can get them back on as more comes to light throughout the process. But yeah, I learned a lot, and I feel like we covered a lot of ground. It was one of our longer episodes, and it was good information along the way.
We had some longer ones when you were gone too. I think the Jamie and John one went close to an hour and a half, which is not surprising when you get those two coming on together. So
yeah, I'm sure I need to go back and listen to that one. I'm sure it was filled with some
it was good. Shout out to our sponsors, Multi-Service Fuel Card. Like I said, been around since 1978. Jessica, Patricia, great people. Jamie, who we were just mentioning, Texas Trucker, proud user of multi-service fuel card. A lot of drivers love them. Black Box, Will's Company HD, where I recruit for. Load Base, Premier Tracking. Hit up Stan on LinkedIn. Used to be a dispatcher. Loadbase.com. Sales Dash, Will uses it. We have some agents that use it. I have a massive growth. I mean, just the amount of companies that are using Sales Dash is they're doing some big things. And TAFs, we just renewed our 6-month. They renewed their 6-month sponsorship, banner sponsorship with us for next 6 months. We're happy to have them back for another 6 months. Premier factoring company in Kansas City. We're heavy Kansas City based on this podcast.
Right by Kansas City. They're over in Olathe, Kansas. I think I said Kansas City earlier, and Andrew commented Taft, Olathe, Kansas. So I misled you there. But that's right.
Well, you're confusing me now. You're making me say things. Go on for a month and come back one show and get me.
Multi-services over there as well. So yeah, we're Missouri heavy. Well, awesome, man. Yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. We'll be posting the dog of the week tomorrow, and we'll be back at it with another episode next week.
Yeah, we got a good dog of the week tomorrow. So
yeah, I'm excited about this one. Yeah.
All right, I'll see you guys next week. I'll be live probably. It's kind of funny. I don't think we've ever been live on a Monday, so there's no chance we'll be live on Monday. I don't think we've ever been live on a Tuesday, but we'll be live probably next Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday.
Most likely, yeah. Stay tuned to the page. We'll post an announcement with the next show.
All right. See ya.
See ya.